Primetime local news, serving the Lakeland and Midwest regions.
Good evening, welcome to Primetime Local News. I'm Jasmine King. Saskatchewan is reporting 31 new cases of COVID-19, bringing the provincial total to 871. Of the new 31 cases, 21 cases come from the central region, 2 in the Regina area, 1 in Saskatoon, and 1 in the south. 3 people are in hospital, 1 receiving inpatient care in Saskatoon and 2 in intensive care. 90 cases are considered active and 766 people have recovered. Now for this week's retrospect, here's Blake Nath.
This week in retrospect, Colonial Days 95 kicks off with a parade, rides, and live acts.
Colonial Days 95 kicked off this morning with the annual parade, which included 5 marching bands. Thousands lined the streets for the parade, featuring floats from across the Midwest.
Well, we had 122 floats. It's a little bit down from last year, but still really good. Anytime we can exceed 100 floats, I think we're really pleased. 110, 120 is a pretty normal amount.
And at noon, the Midway opened. Last year, the 4-day event attracted over 35,000 people, and this year's event has a few new twists for fairgoers to see and do.
This year we have the Lord Strathcona Mounted Troop. They'll be performing their musical ride 3 p.m. and 6 p.m. Today and tomorrow. Friday they'll have a 3 p.m. show. We've got the Flying Fools High Dive Act just right behind me. And we have a new ride on the Midway. It's called the Xandar. Should be great.
And in 2000, the Lakeland College campus in Lloydminster receives major renovations.
Education is such a fluid, changing, dynamic business. You always have to future pace, I call it. Look ahead, what's out there, what's down the road, and try to anticipate it. Try to anticipate the curve before you get to it.
As a result, students and staff returning to Lakeland College this fall will notice some changes.
At this campus, at Lloydminster campus, there are several major renovations going on, and in Vermilion, we're doing major, just gutting the labs and environment, and the animal health technology lab is being updated, and massive jobs. We're talking $300,000 or $400,000.
They are spending the money now in order to be prepared for major growth in the next few years. After coming up with their 3-year business plan, the college is expecting to double its enrollment and add 7 new programs, 5 of which will be in Lloydminster.
Our 3-year plan focuses on quality of education, and education is the core of our business. That's what we do. That's what we're all about.
And that's it for this week in retrospect.
Retrospect this week is brought to you by Webb's Ford. Worth your while to drive the extra mile. Webb's Ford in Vermilion.
Now our Connor Chan will take a look at your weather forecast.
All right, thanks very much, Jasmine. Take a look at temperatures right now. A little bit cloudy outside. We did have a nice day, a nice sunny start to the day. But then, of course, it picked up with the cloud coverage. We did see a little bit of showers in the afternoon, and now we currently still sit at that 16-degree mark for our high right now. Around other temperatures around the area: 17 in Vermilion, 18 in Vegreville, 19 degrees for Edmonton, 17 down for Provost, 13 in North Battleford, 12 degrees out in Maidstone, 13 also out in St. Walburg. Cold Lake sitting at 15 degrees as well. Bonneville also sitting at 17, and Lac La Biche sitting at 18 degrees. So here's a look at the satellite radar map over the past coming hours. So we are going to get some of that cloud coverage and precipitation back into our city here over the next couple of hours, as we are expected some showers heading into tomorrow, as well as maybe into the weekend as well. We could see a little bit of a break in midweek, but we are going to see mostly some showers and cloud coverage coming our way fairly sooner rather than later. But here's a look at what we could see in our region here overnight. 11 degrees in North Battleford with some showers. 17 degrees tomorrow, the daytime high, with mostly rain expected there. Cold Lake 11 degrees with showers overnight with 11, and then 16 tomorrow for the daytime high with showers to follow suit. And Here in Lloydminster, same results, 10 degrees overnight with 16 degrees tomorrow and some rain expected. So here's a look at the next 3 days. As I mentioned, we have a 59% chance there of some showers there, as well as on Wednesday, with that high of 21. We also could see some showers coming in at that 55% as well. 24 degrees on Thursday, where we still have that cloud coverage coming in, though. We do have a little bit warmer with that high of 24 degrees expected. Of course, we did see some rain, a little bit of those showers over the weekend as well, and like I mentioned earlier this afternoon as well, we could probably maybe see up just a little bit of millimeters of rain. The volume's still kind of undetermined right now, but as we could see about maybe 1 up to a millimeter on both Tuesday and on Wednesday. It's the later part of the weeks where we could see a little bit more volume of rain. But that is a first look at your weather forecast. We'll have more primetime local news coming up after the break.
This past weekend, a number of NHL players opted out of the 2020 playoffs. Joining Evan Kenny to chat about the events is hockey insider Josh Park.
Well, today is not only the first day of NHL training camps, but it is also the final day that NHL players are allowed to opt out of the 2020 NHL playoffs. Joining me today to discuss this is hockey insider as well as a member of Oilers Nation, Josh Park. Josh, thanks for taking this time.
Ev, thanks a lot for having me, buddy. Appreciate it.
Now, Josh, 6 players over the weekend opted out of the playoffs. Already included in that is Mike Green, Travis Hamonic, Roman Polak, Steven Comfer, Sven Berchi, and Carl Alsner. Does one of these players stand out to you as affecting their team more by being out?
Yeah, Evan, this might come as a surprise considering he only played a few games for the Oilers, but the one player that actually does stick out to me is indeed Mike Green. And for the reason being that added flexibility that he would allow the Oilers to have on the back end. Of course, we heard this morning, Caleb Jones unable to participate in practice. We're not sure exactly what the situation is there quite yet. He may be joining the team eventually, but when we look at that back end for the Oilers, Mike Green actually added a lot of flexibility. You look at a player like Matt Benning, whether he was going to transition in and out of the lineup, and a lot of people not even knowing if Mike Green was actually going to be a solidified top 6 defenseman for this team. Although he might not have been, he was going to add a lot of flexibility, being able to transition different players in and out of the lineup. And of course, in the case that one player went down, of course, Mike Green would have for sure been in that top 6. And of course, I also look at that top power play unit, Oscar Klefbom being the pivotal point up at the defenseman spot. And if he would have went down, I would think that probably a lot of people would argue for Darnell Nurse, but I think Mike Green actually might have transitioned into that role at one point, Evan. You know, he was dynamite on the power play. And of course, being a right-handed shot, he probably would have transitioned in there. But I would say Mike Green probably is the number one player that I think is going to be affected opting out.
Yeah, as a former first-round pick, we saw what he could do, especially with his time in Washington. So it doesn't surprise me, especially when you bring up the point of the power play. But you mentioned he's only played 2 games with the Oilers and didn't do a whole lot during those 2 games. But is it almost also the veteran presence that they'll miss during these playoffs?
You exactly nailed that, Evan. Having a guy like Mike Green that, has a lot of playoff experience, because when we look at this Oilers team, especially the back end, a lot of them are still so young. Of course, they got that experience back in 2016, and they had a lot of those players that are still on the lineup today in the back end that were a part of that playoff run. But that was a long time ago, and a lot of those players, that was their only moments in the postseason. So Mike Green, a guy steady, has been in these situations before. He would have been solid on the back end for them, not only on the ice, but in the locker room. So personally, a lot of people might argue with me, but I think Mike Green is actually a guy that the Oilers probably wish they could have had during the postseason.
Now, Josh, as I mentioned, 6 players already opting out of the playoffs, let alone whatever else will happen today. Are you surprised by the amount of players that have opted out, or did you think it could have been higher?
You know what, Evan, part of me is surprised and part of me isn't. Of course, you look at the league, those 6 players that have opted out right now, not to take anything away from them, but I don't know if we would call them superstar status, but, you look at the NBA, players like Victor Oladipo, Bradley Beal, 2 solidified stars in the NBA have already opted out for, different health reasons and personal reasons. But you look at these players that had opted out in the NHL, we're sitting at, you mentioned 6 right now. Part of me is surprised, but part of me might think that there might be a few more players that end up opting out. And one name that's kind of been in the mix, depending on what's going to happen with him, is actually Max Domi. They're not sure what's going to happen. The Canadians have given him a little bit bigger of a window to decide, of course, with his outlying health issues that he has. So we'll see if he ends up opting out, but I wouldn't be surprised if a few more players today end up making the decision.
Yeah, Max Domi, a type 1 diabetic, as well as Capo Caco and Luke Cunnin for the Minnesota Wild, all potentially could be out due to all having type 1 diabetes. That's still up in the air. 5 out of the 6 players who have already opted out, it was due to family issues, and family issues could be something that we see during these playoffs, as players won't be able to see their families until at the earliest the conference finals. Do you think that'll be something that's just lingering on the players' minds?
You know what, Evan? A lot of people during this time of the virus and this pandemic are using the term unprecedented times, but really that's what this is right now. This is something the players aren't going to be used to, especially, being a professional athlete, being on the road a lot. You might go on, long road trips that see you be away from your family for, let's say, up to 10 to 14 days. But this right now is going to be the longest time that probably a lot of these players have been away from their families. So this is going to be a tough transition. This is going to really, this is going to require a whole new level of mental strength for these players. But, these are professional athletes. They're going to be cut out for it. And I think although it's going to be a tough transition, I think it will affect a lot of people.
Josh, it's always a pleasure getting to speak with you. Thank you for giving some of your insight.
Thanks a lot, Evan. Happy to be here.
Now our Connor Chan will take a look at your weather forecast.
All right, thanks very much, Jasmine. Taking a look right now, still sitting at 16 degrees right now for our daytime highs. We move out further west, 20 degrees in Edmonton, 19 degrees in Rocky Mountain House, Athabasca, and Whitecourt, 18 degrees in both Red Deer and in Jasper as well. As we move over out further east to the eastern part of Canada there, 17 degrees in Saskatoon, 16 degrees in Melfort, 18 in Prince Albert, 14 in North Battleford, and 15 degrees out in Meadow Lake. Now, as we move up north a bit to both northern Alberta and Saskatchewan, 15 degrees for La Loche and Buffalo Narrows. La Roche sitting at 19 degrees, 23 out in Flin Flon, 14 degrees for Southend, and 17 degrees for Wollaston Lake, while Stony Rapids and Uranium City sitting at 18 and 22 degrees. 14 degrees for Slave Lake, Fort McMurray, and in Grand Rapids. High level, sitting at 16 degrees. Peace River sitting at 18 as well. Now, as we take a look into southern Alberta and Saskatchewan right now, 20 degrees in Lethbridge, 18 degrees for Medicine Hat and Calgary, along with Coronation, and 14 right now out in Banff. And as we move over into southern Saskatchewan, 19 degrees for both Regina and Moose Jaw, 17 for Swift Current and Yorkton. Estimand sitting at 21 degrees, and Kindersley right now sitting at 18 degrees. Now, here's what it looks like for the rest of the country. I did mention Regina at 19 degrees. They have some cloud coverage, a little bit of sun right now. Winnipeg sitting at 18 degrees with some showers, 24 degrees in Toronto right now, with 26 degrees in Quebec City, 23 in St. John's, and 26 also out in Halifax, mostly with some cloud coverage and a little bit of sun following that as well. Vancouver sitting with mostly sun, sitting at 18 degrees. Whitehorse sitting at 17, 15 degrees in Yellowknife with some showers, and Edmonton sitting at 20 degrees, as I mentioned earlier, with some cloud coverage to follow suit. Now, of course, as we take a look at temperatures for tomorrow, we are expecting about a 59% chance of some showers there with a daytime high of 16 degrees, 18 for Vermilion, 19 for Wainwright and Provost and Macklin tomorrow, also out in Vegreville, 22 degrees for Edmonton tomorrow, 16 up north in Bonnyville, Cold Lake, and Lac La Biche as well. Maidstone also sitting at 16. North Battleford will have a 17-degree daytime high, along with Meadow Lake, Green Lake, and Isle La Crosse as well. Now, as we take a look at the next 7 days, I did mention there are showers tomorrow as well as on Wednesday, which would be a daytime high of 21 degrees, 24 degrees for Thursday, 19 degrees for Friday, where we could see the majority of the volume of rain as expected, around that 5 to 10 millimeter mark with that high of 19 there, and a high of 18 for Saturday with a 60% chance of some showers there as well. 19 degrees on Sunday, as well as 22 degrees on Monday, where we will have a little bit of a warmer and a little bit more of a clearer day with just a little bit of cloud coverage there. We usually average around that 23-degree mark around this time of year for the daytime high, averaging around 11 for our daytime low. Let's look at your 7-day forecast. We are about a couple days of rain there, but we'll have our primetime local news after this.
Joining us here today is Global Saskatoon's meteorologist Peter Quinlan. How are you today, Peter?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing very good. Lloydminster has been getting stormy weather with strong winds, rain, and thunder. Do you think we'll be expecting a lot more of that in the future?
Yeah, we are. This is kind of the hard, severe weather season. So we look at basically a setup of every few days you start to see storms develop and fire off. And we've had it almost every day for a while across the Minster area. That trend is going to continue as we head through this little while, although I think we'll see a break day every so often. So expecting a few over the next little while, but we're really in the heart of summer as storm season. And so this trend is going to continue for at least until early August.
How quick can weather change from sort of a chance of showers to a storm?
Yeah, that's a good question. So it all depends on what's happening in the atmosphere. We've got a lot of heat and humidity that often allows some daytime heating. So when we warm up during the afternoon, showers to transition to thunderstorms. So that's fairly frequent at this time of year. We see the showers earlier in the day, and then enough heat to basically boost those storms even higher in the atmosphere, those clouds higher in the atmosphere. They become storms. So that's what causes those storms to develop. Oftentimes you have an area of low pressure that pushes through, and that all helps fuel the storms. So that's kind of the trend that we see that transition take place. Fairly common almost on a daily basis at this time of year, especially when we get a little bit of moisture on the ground. That actually make the air a little lighter. So whenever you get rising motion in the atmosphere, that helps fuel the storms.
Interesting. And could you tell us some signs for Lloydminster residents to look for in case of a tornado to ever come?
Yeah, that's a good question. So you do start to see what we call a lowering cloud base out of a very strong thunderstorm. That's what we call a wall cloud, and that is something that usually begins to rotate. When that begins to pull out of the cloud base, at first we call that a funnel cloud, and if it begins to lower to the ground, once it makes contact with the ground, we call that a tornado. So what you look for, that wall cloud, kind of a lowering in the cloud base, and you can actually, if you watch it very closely, you'll see the cloud actually spinning. And that's when you need to head indoors. And if you spot a funnel cloud or tornado, you can report it to Environment Canada, and they will be the ones who issue a tornado warning. And if you see ominous conditions, dark clouds, oftentimes thunderstorms that have the capability of producing a tornado look like a dark green color because they're so thick and full of hail and rain and just a very strong, potent storm. That is one of the indicators we look at for very strong storms. And if you see that, when thunder roars, head indoors at any time. But yeah, that's when it could become tornadic.
And do you believe Lloydminster could expect to have some tornadoes in the future?
Yeah, we always have the potential across Saskatchewan and Alberta to see tornadoes, and that does include Lloydminster area. We've seen some in the area over the past 100 years. So the potential is there, although it's very random in nature a lot of times. But Lloydminster is certainly in called Canada's Tornado Alley, which basically spans from central Saskatchewan into parts of east central Alberta. So we do see a number of tornadoes in this zone on an annual basis. So the likelihood of seeing a tornado isn't necessarily super high on any given year, but the chance is there, so we should always be ready in case.
And what kind of safety measures would be best for residents to take when a tornado decides to hit?
Yeah, so if you do hear a tornado warning, you need to get into the lowest level of your house, probably in a basement, in an interior room away from any windows or doors, because one of the biggest threats with tornadoes is the debris that they throw around at you at wind speeds over 200 kilometers per hour. If you think about it, that's as dangerous as standing out in front of a car driving at the speed of 200 kilometers per hour. So you want to get inside, get into that lowest level away from those windows or doors, and go into a bathroom is a recommended location, put a mattress over top of you because they can even tear the roofs off buildings. So if you don't have a lower level bathroom, you can also go underneath the steps or get into a building that does have that as an option.
And I know a question that has kind of come up is, why have tornadoes been coming up more in Saskatchewan?
Well, actually, on average, there are more tornadoes in a year in Saskatchewan than any other province in Canada. So that's kind of the hot spot. We see about 16 to 18 average in a year. Alberta, we see around 12, maybe to 15 on average in a year. So slightly less. Oftentimes, it depends on where the storms develop and what the strength of them is. So there's not really necessarily anything beyond that. Just the areas of low pressure that often fuel these strong storms have been at their strongest point over Saskatchewan.
Oh, okay. Well, perfect. Thank you so much for giving us your insight on the weather and everything today, Peter.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Shelby.
Furniture set and design supplied by Furniture Gallery and Furniture House, downtown Lloydminster.
I'm joined here with Alyssa Dobko, and she's the founder of Exceptionally Educated Exceptional Learners. Now, can you explain what this program is?
It focuses on working with children and adults as well with exceptionalities, and just helping them be involved in the community and work on some daily life skills, whether that be playing with others, maybe it's building routine or regulating behavior, or just working on play in general.
Why did you really want to start this program?
I've been working in this field for quite a while. I started probably 8 to 9 years ago now, working with kids with exceptionalities. And it was a really tough adjustment when I first started, but I grew to love it. And I've worked for many different organizations. I've taken a lot of different type of training. I just finished my special education certification, which is an add-on to my Bachelor of Education, and was accepted into my master's. And so with all of the knowledge I've gained and with my many years of experience, and just through talking with parents, I've kind of learned what we're lacking here in Lloydminster in terms of helping people with exceptionalities. And I knew that I could offer some of those things. And so I decided that that was what I was going to do. And so right now, just as I get going, I'm working with 3 children, and I work with them in my home right now. And we just work on different types of skills. We work on the children interacting with each other and playing. And so what I'm hoping to eventually do is be able to have bigger programs. So things maybe like soccer, dance classes, skating, play groups, and just kind of expand that further.
And you mentioned that you see it a little bit less in Lloydminster than you would like to. Is that one of the reasons why you think it's so important to start something like this?
Absolutely. So Lloydminster does have many great programs already for children with exceptionalities, but one thing a lot of parents say we're lacking is specialized programming. So we have a lot of really great respite. We have some centers, but we don't have things such as special O, which are a little bit bigger in other centers. And so some parents have just requested to see that. And I thought, you know what, I can do that. I know enough people who are willing to volunteer and help out. And I still love doing the respite piece. So while I'm starting those programs up, I can still do respite, which is really awesome.
And is there a difference between the sessions that you offer?
Yes. So each session is individualized to the child and family's needs. When I'm working with kids in my home, what I work on is just interacting with them, getting to know them, and then it kind of comes to skill development. So one of the little girls that I've had for a really long time, I've had her for a year. Right now, we are working on interpersonal skills, and we're working on cleaning up after ourselves and being a helpful member of the household. That being said, though, that's taken us about a whole year to work up to. And that was one of the things her mom had requested we work on. And so it really just depends on the family. I can go into homes and work on skills within the home, or children can come to me and work on skills with me. And then I also have a dog. She's a golden retriever, and we are working on getting certified to become a handler. So I become a handler, and she will become a therapy dog. So we can also provide therapy dog services as well.
And do you believe programs like this should be more common, not even just here in Lloydminster, but just in communities all over?
Absolutely. They can be a little bit hard to start up just because sometimes people feel they take away the meaning of inclusion. But that definitely is not my goal. I stand for inclusion. I believe in inclusion. But I also believe that we need to build skills so that students can be included. And so if we have a soccer program here in Lloyd just for children with exceptionalities, they can go back to school on Monday and talk about the soccer games they had over the weekend, just as other kids can as well. And that is just another form of inclusion. And so just having these programs in any community is so beneficial, and I believe it's so important. So if I can start it here and branch it out, that would be absolutely amazing.
And for each kid or each person involved, is that changed when the sessions are and how many times a week you may see them?
Absolutely. And again, that's completely up to the parents and my schedule. So right now with the little girl that I've worked with for a year, I see her just whenever really works for us. Sometimes she spends the night, so sometimes we have her for 2 days. Other children I see 3 times a week for 3 hours, so it's more regimented. And I just like the flexibility of it. And I believe flexibility is really important because some days maybe just aren't going to work for the kiddos, right? So I can't force them.
And if anyone is looking to contact you, where should they go?
Right now, I have a Facebook page called Exceptionally Educated. So you can contact me through there, and I guess word of mouth. I know a few people in town know me, so it's pretty easy to get a hold of me.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Alyssa.
Thanks, Jasmine. I really appreciate it.
All right, taking one last look here at your weather forecast. 16 degrees tomorrow, 21 on Wednesday, where we could see some showers on both those days there. 24 on Thursday, 19 degrees for Friday, and 18 for Saturday with showers continuing on. We could see maybe up to 5 to 10 millimeters of rain on Friday. 19 degrees on Sunday and 22 degrees on Monday as we start to warm up a little bit and get a little bit more sun compared to the last few days before that, with a bunch of cloud coverage and showers that we are expecting.
Thanks for joining us for Primetime Local News. Have a great night.